Tonight we delve into the shadowy corners of the human experience as we unravel three vastly different stories, each one more unsettling than the last. We touch on a seemingly unremarkable nightlight that harbors way more than meets the eye, and leaves an impression on our storyteller that lasts a lifetime. We cover a story from war-torn Laos during the Secret War, wherein a family hiding in the cave systems is met with a familiar voice in the dark of night that leads to a tragic disappearance shrouded in mystery that they'll never recover from. However, our tale begins in the seemingly ordinary confines of a single wide trailer, in a story that is sure to leave you hoping for a paranormal explanation because the alternative would somehow be even more terrifying. We'll see you on the inside. Damn, why can't I ever, like, the cadence? I feel like Ron Burgundy every time I say we'll see you on the inside because the cadence is all off. I'm Ron Burgundy. We'll see you on the inside. And that's fine, honestly. In the meantime, folks, welcome back to Sleep with the Lights On, Volume 12. We hope you are having a fantastic Friday. Thanks for joining us once again to share some creepy stories about whatever the hell these creepy stories are about. We actually got some really interesting ones today, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them. Before you enjoy them, though, go ahead and follow us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, wherever you're at. If you're new and just checking this out on YouTube now, hit that subscribe button. We drop these bad boys every other Friday, as well as the full podcast every Thursday. So you're in for a real treat. We got some other fun stuff in the works. Once things slow down a little bit and get a little less hectic on the old schedule, we'll get those worked in soon. Christian, how are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Spectacular.
Wow.
Spooktacular.
Isn't that a little too much? And that's fine. Honestly, good times.
Share your scary stories with us.
Yeah, share your scary stories with us as well. If you want to bump your water bottle into the microphone while I'm talking, you can do that because Christian does it willy-nilly. Doesn't bother anyone. If you want to share your experiences with us, paranormal or just terrifying in nature, send those stories into the gang at thefreakydeaky.com. Or if you're not feeling like you want to browse the internet, go ahead and just comment it where you're at and say, hey, this is a story I'd like to hear on the show. Block a text. You know what I mean? And on the subject of websites, we will be actually building on a new website in the near future. I recently finished a website for Tony at the Confessionals, and it looks amazing. And now I'm building out a portfolio again, and it's been a while. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to spruce up our website because when we started this thing, I literally spent 30 minutes throwing it together because I was like, we just need a website. Boom, the end. But now I'm going to make it fancy. You got to make it sexy for people. They got to look at it and be like, oh, wow, look at these spooky ghost stories. I can't wait to listen. So that's what's going to happen in the near future. But you're not here for any of that. As is tradition, you're here to listen to three scary stories. And that's what we're going to right now. And this first one is called I'm Back for You. And it's by Obi Meme Kenobi. Classic. This one's kind of spooky too. Like I'll
be the judge of that.
It's short and it doesn't I'm just gonna get into it. That's all right. This is one my grandma used to tell about one of her aunts. They lived in Laos during the Secret War. Her aunts.
Do you know what the Secret War is?
Well, it wouldn't be much of a secret war if I did, Christian. All right.
It's connected. It's part of the Vietnam War.
That's kind of what I was wondering. That checks out. They lived in Laos during the Secret War. Her aunt started talking with one of the American soldiers and he started learning basic Hmong. After some time, though, he stopped showing up. The basic consensus was that he was dead, but she kept waiting for him. When things got really bad... Did you have a thought?
I said, oh.
Wow. When things got really bad and the bombs started dropping, they fled to the caves for shelter. One night, as everyone is sleeping, she hears a familiar voice. It's the shoulder. It's the shoulder.
It's out of place.
Yeah. It keeps popping, damn it. No. It's the soldier. He's mumbling in a very broken Hmong, I'm back for you. Over and over again. Her eyes are still closed until she feels something reach out and grab her shoulder and slowly move down to her hand. When it reached her hand, she said it wasn't a human hand at all, but like a large animal paw. She briefly opened her eyes to see a dark figure, clearly not human, standing over her. Then, she heard her aunt get up. Something was said, but she couldn't make out what it was. The figure then left, and the aunt followed. This was still in the middle of the night, mind you. The aunt was never seen again. The story is that the dead soldier came back to take her with him, or something else imitated him in order to take her. To clarify the story, the paw touched my grandma. I don't know why it touched her first. She knows it happened because they were all hiding and sleeping in the cave together.
So was it the grandma or the aunt that had a thing going on with this soldier?
I believe it was the aunt. So
the aunt followed whatever this thing was out and disappeared.
Yeah.
Into the...
What's creepy there, though, is that the broken Hmong, where it's like, I'm back for you. But it goes to the grandma first, and then it's almost like after, like, oh, oops, sorry, wrong person, it's dark in here. But also, I'm not an American soldier anymore. I'm a weird large animal, black shadow figure that is speaking broken Hmong. I'm going to go talk to your aunt now. Aunt follows this thing out the cave and is never seen again. That's, dude.
In a war-torn area.
Mm-hmm.
And Hmong, that's with the H in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about...
We had an entire episode on, yeah. And that was probably over, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. But that was a creepy episode too.
Yeah. This almost has like a skinwalker, Kushtaka.
Wendigo even.
Wendigo. Many of those things, obviously, they don't just lurk in the United States or...
Well, yeah, of course.
Or their relatives, or I don't know what you'd call them in this kind of realm. It's not really the animal kingdom, even if it appeared kind of as an animal.
The half animal kingdom. No.
Why do you think people see those type of things like the dog man? Bigfoot's different in my opinion, but these like dog man, Kushtaka, skinwalkers, Wendigo, they kind of all feel similar in a lot of ways, or they have a couple traits that make them similar, or the experiences seem to be a little. Yeah.
Well, you obviously know my thoughts on all that. I'm sure everyone listening is well familiar with how I believe all those things could happen. In instances like this, we've had a lot of stories where people are like mimicking voices or whatnot, and that's kind of what you feel in this story. Like, it's weird because it'd be one thing the soldier comes back and it's a soldier, But the fact that this voice is coming and you feel what feels like a large paw. You open your eyes, you're like, oh, that's definitely not human. Why would the aunt follow that? If it wasn't the soldier, if it wasn't human looking, why would the aunt follow it out of the cave?
Maybe it was the soldier just coming back or taking another form of something.
My spirit animal is a large black panther, and I'm here to take you out of this cave.
Not sure they have panthers in Laos, but
they
probably
have a spirit animal. It could be a meerkat for all they care.
That's true.
Yeah, it just pops out. It's like, I'm back for you.
That makes perfect sense.
It does. Well, this is everything I say on this show, right? Probably not. And that's fine.
But not that Noah's Ark thing.
As soon as I said that, I'm like, I bet he's going to bring up the Noah's Ark thing. But I could do the same thing for you, but I would have to go through like a laundry list of everything you've ever said on the show and be like, which one of these do I want to use today?
Like that.
It's almost like too many options where I'm like, well, now I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let him have his little bit.
You can just use that one comment where the guy got on my case for believing in demons,
but not the devil. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure I ever said I believe in demons, but
I'm not sure. Maybe he heard me altering your voice via soundboard.
Could be.
But he did actually comment that on a short, and you're notorious for being like, I never said that, and then I'll push a button and it's you saying that, and you're like, oh,
sometimes I say things and the way it comes out is totally different, especially in a short, because there's not really context.
There's zero context, I'm finding, yeah. And I'm actually tired of shorts because that's exclusively where we get the shittiest comments, and that's fine, honestly. Have your thoughts, but you're fucking wrong. You're dumb. Piece of shit. No, I'm just, it's
wow,
fine.
Man.
No, just bleep after bleep. It's fine. Honestly, that's not a ghost story. That's just me telling you guys what I should be telling my therapist. And that's fine. What do you think of that Laos story? Well, I get into this next one.
I want some more Laos stories. I want more stories from those regions because
they're a little more fascinating, right?
Well, they're also, how often have we heard a story with something supernatural coming into a cave that people are actually sleeping in? We don't have written records from the time humans spent in caves, and that had to have been fascinating.
Yeah, we have heard several cave stories over the years, though, for sure, and those are always fun.
But typically, those are stories of people going into caves for one reason or another. But humans used to live in caves in a lot of regions.
Sure.
So
that is what they tell you.
I mean, that's where they find the bones of people.
Where are the bones?
Ancient people, because they lived in caves for a while.
Hey, ain't that some shit? Anyway, this next one, I know where you're going to take it, and I actually think I take it in that same direction, but it's creepier that way. And it's called The Boy Under the House.
Who killed the boy under the house?
Wow. Not what it's called. I grew up in a mobile home. When I was very little, maybe 8, I made a friend that lived in the floor. His name was Adam, and he was my best friend all that year. He wasn't there every day, and he was only there certain times of day, usually right as I would get home from school. Adam always asked me how I was and what I did that day. Sometimes he would ask me to go to different places in the house so he could hear me better. It was usually in the bathroom.
Of course.
Classic. I would sit in the tub and talk to him. My brother could hear him too, but he lived with my grandparents and wasn't over often. Dad, I don't think, heard him, but Adam never talked when he was around. He wanted me to go outside a lot, and sometimes I did, but I never met Adam or saw him. Then one day, Adam just stopped talking, and I never heard from him again. I'm not sure if this was a ghost or spirit of some kind. I almost hope it was. That'd be easier to swallow than the very likely story that there was someone under my goddamn house. Okay.
This one's easy.
Yeah. And creepy, dude. Way too creepy.
Imaginary friends can be creepy.
I don't know. As I was reading it, I'm like at first I was like, oh, there's a weird disembodied voice in this kid's house, right? Until it was like, no, you got to go to different parts of the house so I can hear you better. You're like, oh, I don't think ghosts would have that issue, but that makes it even creepier. So number one, let's just go ahead and call it. There was a random man underneath the house. Hopefully it was a boy, like hopefully it was a similar age and maybe like a homeless kid or something like that. But creepy if it was a grown man.
But it sounds like he still talked to this entity even when he went outside. So that kind of takes away.
But it's a trailer. Right, so isn't there something underneath that trailer?
I mean, usually they sit up on something,
like some kind of
on like little stilts or stands or something. So there is a little bit of space underneath them. I'm still thinking it's an imaginary friend that he just threw out of that stage.
His brother heard?
Maybe his brother heard him doing both. I don't know, man.
What's creepy is if this Adam character suddenly disappears, right? Did he die under the house, or did he just move on?
I mean, we've all heard the crazy stories that come out of trailer parks. There's a reason people talk about trailer parks so much. So maybe...
Hey, no judgment.
Maybe something tragic did happen there and Adam is a remnant.
Yeah, but this is like one of those, I don't know, it's kind of weird. It seems like the author themselves know what happened. They're like, I hope it was a ghost or a spirit of some kind, but I don't think so. It's rare that you're rooting for ghost. You know what I mean?
That is true.
And these stories, you're usually just like, oh, that was creepy. But you try to like rationalize it or explain it away or something like that. But in this instance, this particular story was terrifying. Just the thought of some grown man or something underneath your house talking to you while you're home alone. I mean, luckily it seems like he never saw him. He was like, I went outside several times. He never came out, never saw him. I don't know, man.
It feels like an imaginary friend, like the one I was playing with in my room when I was young named Scott.
Yeah. Wow. It was me the whole time.
But that one was weird because that was actually one of my friends. So
do you think he was astral projecting?
That would be fascinating.
That would be fascinating.
And then
you should reach out and ask him if he remembers.
He died.
Oh, well, that was a tragic end.
It was because it was on, I think they went to wake him up on Christmas morning.
Dude.
And he was dead.
Read the room. What the fuck? This is...
I'm sorry. This was many years ago. I was still a kid when this happened.
Damn. Well, got a lot sadder.
Yeah, I think he had
a lot sadder.
I think he might have had the flu or pneumonia or something, and
that happens. Especially back in like the Oregon Trail days, right?
Yeah, Palmdale, California, back
in the Oregon Trail days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to restart these cameras and we're going to wash that sadness away from our hearts. If you really think about it, it just isn't an episode of anything we do without you really bringing down the room, you know?
I do what I can. I mean, I didn't, that's just what happened in the world. Happens every day. It's not necessarily, well, I guess it is sad.
It's not sad. Just a kid dying on Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, it even bothered me when and we weren't even that close when it happened because it was a few years later. And I think I might have been, I don't know where I was at the time.
Probably outside playing stick and hoop.
I might have been living in like Rancho Cucamonga at the time. And when I found out about it, but it was like one of those things where you're like, when you're a kid.
It shouldn't happen.
That's like the first person I know of that I was friends with that died.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to something scary. Less tragic.
Yeah, sure. In an attempt to segue into this next story that is also about a tragedy and a kid, let's get into this next story. Huh? Nothing sad happened. That's
Not at
fine.
all.
Which is really weird because, look, I'm notoriously like a depressed person and like overwhelmed and stressed out, but I'm hilarious. You know what I mean? You get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm funny and I make people laugh, and that's my thing. You are a notoriously happy person and you like sharing the really weird, sad, macabre shit and bringing everyone down. It's a really strange dynamic, but I feel like there's an interesting balance there.
Yeah. For sure.
So way to go. Thanks, Christian. Anyway, back to this final story of the evening, which is The Red Balloon Nightlight.
The Red Balloon, great movie when I was a kid.
Okay. And it's by wherein. When I was very little, like transitioning to sleeping in a bed, I had a red wall-mounted nightlight in the shape of a red balloon. It had been there since before my birth when they were decorating my room. I should mention that my grandfather, an ordained minister and also a man who has been described to me at once as being both devoutly loving, gentle, and empathetically kind, even to strangers, but also deeply, darkly conflicted by his time during World War II as a frogman. He was present on deck of his battleship for the Japanese surrender. Following the Great War, he fought in some capacity in the Korean conflict. I know even less about his time spent during this period. I'm digressing, though, from the tie-in. 2 days after I was born and no longer rationally able to properly justify or even compartmentalize his now surfacing feelings, some form of deeply abiding guilt, my grandfather put a rifle in his mouth, about 20 feet outside my bedroom window in the yard, in a small trailered Winnebago he had converted to his workshop, capable of going where he was needed. He had a very deep need to help those for whom a task was otherwise impossible, making it look easy in the process. A lot of people at church remembered him specifically for this. Most of the time, he wouldn't accept payment. The satisfaction he got from the hard work doing what he felt was his civic and neighborly duty. Well, that was enough for him. Good fucking God, do we have enough about your grandpa? Can we get on about the ghost and the nightlight? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Sheesh.
Maybe the grandfather is important. We'll see.
Oh, God. Well, while I don't think the red ghost was my grandfather, unless I have been deeply misled, but nevertheless, I felt it warranted inclusion. Perhaps it was the evil, still present malevolence that previously tormented my grandfather, literally to death, now manifesting itself in my space, because I was the most susceptible, as a perceptually open child, to being aware of its presence near me, to the point of being able to verbally communicate. I really cannot overstate the vile nature of the things it said to me. Imagine the girl from Poltergeist. Now imagine that, but 10 times more shocking and obscene every night until I went to sleep, hiding under my covers. My parents were the type that wouldn't use the word hate around me. That was what my early childhood was like. So seriously, there's no place I could have picked up these violent, hateful, swear-ridden, sexually obscene themes that this lamp spoke to me about. I was a sheltered 4-year-old. I liked Barney and Lamb Chop and my sandbox. This negativity only escalated until one day, after opening up to my mom, who, like me, despite being a very rational person, believed in things she'd seen and felt, but couldn't necessarily quantify. She heard me out, apologized for not seeing my fear sooner, and offered to immediately remove it. More on this later. As soon as it was gone, Simon started coming to life in my toy chest every night. You remember Simon?
Simon's the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annoying as hell. Sometimes Simon very, very slowly made it, albeit successfully, through 2 or 3 patterns before timing out and screaming that sick electronic, "You fucking lose, dickhead," buzz that it would give when you lost. Then, quiet. However, usually a few minutes later, it would run again, nauseatingly slow through 2 or 3 more patterns before just giving up again. It got so bad that taking steps to avoid the annoyance became a bedtime routine. Find Simon, turn Simon off. It didn't matter. Eventually we pulled the 9-volt and the Ds that it took. It still went off, but only out of sight. Everybody in my house had a chance to hear it at some point. It was difficult to ignore in the dead quiet of 3 a.m. Seemingly, I have always been haunted by the ghosts that seem to be, themselves, in the more sensitive, low-voltage wires and circuits around me. I think these impish manifestations do what they do, or at least to me, because I've grown up to be a multi-disciplined, logically minded engineer type. Oh, great. But it's also obvious that I notice them. The presence of really personal glitches that seemingly come and go with their own mood, regardless of conditionally corresponding or easily identified glitches, is something that I'm still skeptical about in most cases. Hey, guy, we get it. You're an engineer. You know what I mean?
I don't even have to say over and over again how skeptical I am and why.
I know. Occasionally, though, the way something will fail defy explanation in that the failure mode itself should be virtually impossible. That is, it fails in a way that is just not possible on paper. Somewhat in the same thread as someone frequently tasked with characterizing and developing repair strategy logistics when presented with new failure modes, I often don't even have to repair the offending gadget or machine. This will always occur after others have already taken a crack at it. I'm never totally comfortable when this is the outcome, as I don't base repair practices on faith, unless it's a cheap, quick fix for someone who maybe can't afford the towel dry. LOL. Hilarious. Anyway, also a few times things have come back and then corrected satisfactorily, as at that point I could then actually observe the failure mode as it occurred. But sometimes these things just seem to start working, and in the majority, they never again exhibit the same fault. Also, recently my mother passed, and as I was going through her storage unit, I found that no, she never disposed of the balloon light. It's still in the unit. I don't know what to do with it. Obviously, it didn't speak to me, but I won't give it a chance to speak to anyone else either.
Throw it in the body of water.
There you go. That's like our go-to for anything. Well, you got a fever? Throw it in a body of water. Or throw a body of water into you. Well, that should clear it up.
That could work.
Is it just me, or did like the last 3/4 of that story make no sense to the layman? Because it was all like engineer talk, like, well, I do this and I fucking shove my thumbs up my ass and I'm smarter than everyone. And
I mean, that's what it sounded like he was trying, or they were trying to get at.
So yeah, dude, we get it.
You're smart enough to be skeptical.
Which is always the case with skeptics, those fucking dirty heathens, right?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're right.
Sometimes, but the path to get there is, well, I got to be honest, it's quite exhausting.
I think skepticism, when it becomes like a religion or a faith, almost,
it ruins it for everyone.
It's just annoying.
It is. It is very annoying. What do you think about that Nightlight? And what do you think about the memoir that he wrote about his grandfather before he got to the fucking story?
I mean, that was it. That part was a little fascinating, like, but
there's always a but.
I don't know if it really had anything to do with the experience he had.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think it did. Like, yeah, his grandfather died 10 feet away from the window. And then you're saying that your grandfather's spirit came to a nightlight and started cussing you out and talking about sex and stuff constantly. Because I don't know about you, that doesn't sound like a grandfather thing. And if it is, keep that grandfather away from your children.
It almost sounds like the Laos story where something else inhabits.
Yeah.
Or uses the voice of the grandfather to say things that it sounds like maybe the grandfather might have said in World War II or the Korean War, but because even later on he sounds like a man of faith that might not say those types of things.
Yeah, but even in that, I just don't think that's the case. I don't Like, I don't think it's like what it sounds like. The thing that actually made the most sense that this person said was that I'm not saying it was my grandfather in the nightlight that was doing all these obscene things to me, but I think that perhaps whatever was haunting my grandfather that led him to take his own life moved on to me afterwards and started doing the same thing. And that feels like, because look, I know you're not a spiritual person. I know you don't align yourself with any kind of like those beliefs, but there is, in spiritual terms, there's something that can like latch on to generations, right? And so like, it tears this person apart, and then, after it's done with them, be like, oh, well, they're dead now, I'm going to move on to their family.
Is that in spiritual terms considered a demon?
I would say probably.
Yeah.
But like you see it a lot and you would probably think it's like just genetics or something like that, like alcoholism or like people that like struggle with addiction and stuff like that. You think, oh, well, maybe that's just, it's in their genes, they're more inclined to do this stuff. But as far as like spiritual, like oppression and stuff like that, it's pretty much the exact same thing with a different title,
Right.
Like you just call it's genetics. And people are like, no, it's something that is attacking my family. It's just viewed from different perspectives, which is fine. Honestly, whatever you want to believe. But yeah, I would be more inclined to believe that than I would that his sweet, loving grandfather came out and was like, hey, you want to talk about dicks? And he was like, get away from me, Nightlight. Weird, though, that the mom never got rid of it.
What if the grandfather's actions outside of this, I guess it was a baby at the time, caught the attention of less friendly entities that maybe realized that something tragic happened there and maybe wanted to feed off some of that energy.
Yeah.
Feed off the energy and see. I mean,
it's not out of the realm of possibilities, right?
I mean, that makes more sense to me than the grandfather all of a sudden
being the devil.
Yeah, developing a potty mouth.
Yeah.
Something came along and found an area of tragedy, and maybe that's how hauntings happen, is something notices that energy in that area left behind and maybe feeds on it a little bit. We don't know what.
Yeah, we honestly have no idea.
We don't know what different dimensions, I guess, beings, to use the word. Yeah. What they do, what they affect, how they come into being, where they go, and why.
Yeah. Yeah, there's many a question and nary an answer to be found. First time I've ever said the word nary in my life. But it's fascinating all the same. Like I said, the story was drawn out to like oblivion between let me describe my grandfather for 6 paragraphs and then followed by let me explain in very large vocabulary absolutely nothing and just let you know that I'm smarter than you before concluding that, my mom didn't throw out a nightlight. That's the weirdest end to a story I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, okay, so he talks about problem solving for like 6 paragraphs. Cool. Congratulations. You have a brain. But also, mom didn't throw away the nightlight, so there's that. Goodbye,
I mean, maybe the mom just doesn't believe in throwing away things that work. Some moms are like that. Some dads are like that.
Some kids are like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. That wraps up this episode of Sleep with the Lights On. We hope that you have had a great time. As always, help us grow the show out. Help us get these numbers. Let's get out there and get that chatter, huh? I'm just going to start saying different phrases and hope that one of them stick.
It's just a numbers game, man.
It's just a numbers game, honestly. If you guys can share it with your friends and family, they share it with their friends and family, which hopefully isn't you, because then that's a circle, and we're really trying to expand this thing out. So tell your friends, tell your homies, share it on social media. Find us on social media at Freaky Deaky Pod, where you can communicate with us. And you don't need a Ouija board, friends, because we're right there on the other side of that screen. Be sure to join the Facebook group. It is poppin'. If I had the soundboard, I'd hit that myself, but I do not. It's popping. That was pretty close. We will see you right back here in a couple weeks' time with a fresh episode of Sleep with the Lights On. In the meantime, if you miss us in that period, listen to the podcast every single Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts. The Freaky Deaky. It's right there for you. We're right there for you. We'll see you on the outside before we go back on the inside. And remember, friends, to sleep with the lights on, because you never know what is lurking
in the shadows.
In the shadows. He got it 2 times in a row. We didn't think it was going to happen, but we did it. Golf clap to avoid any major spikes. Until next time.
Be scared